Hi, I'm here with Todd Tramonte, who is the broker and owner of Market Experts Realty in Richardson, Texas. He's also the best-selling author of The Two-Year Flip and The New Rise in Real Estate. So, Todd, tell me a little bit about your story, how you got into real estate, and where you are today.
Yeah, so it's actually it's a pretty interesting one. I would say growing up, I really didn't have much of an idea of what real estate professionals did at all, nor was I really interested in it. But late in college at Baylor University, I started to get into personal finance and investing, and so I started to read some books on the topics of real estate investing, investing out of IRAs and things like that. So real estate kept coming up. And I was interested enough to start flying around and attending some conferences and buying books and CDs and audio and video programs and things like that. And found myself extremely interested in real estate investing. So didn't have much money I guess I was a junior in college. And so I was looking for strategies to be able to invest in real estate without spending a lot of money. And ended up finding a few and started to wholesale some properties. I really enjoyed that, and then kind of the next thing I knew, we were buying, remodeling, and selling as many as 6 or 7 homes a month. So we had 3 full-time remodeling crews kind of running all over Houston, also doing some deals in the Waco area, and then started to get interested in the Dallas-Fort Worth market as well. So kind of decided that's where I really wanted to start investing my time and energy, so started reading more, taking more classes. After we started doing that volume of business, I decided that getting my own real estate license made some sense. It's interesting though, because at the time all the real estate trainers told you do not get your real estate license, and many of them still say that. So I did, because we were doing so many deals and there was commission to be had, to be honest. So I got my license and continued to invest. Graduated college, went to graduate school for a year and a half, continued to do some investing during that time, and then moved and actually took a job with a big senior housing company as their director of acquisitions, which was a really great job for a recent college graduate, and learned pretty quickly that they were a great company, but they were kind of slower moving and really weren't acquiring anything. So as the director of acquisitions, we weren't doing anything. So it was a great job, had a great kind of mentor position there, and but realized I was selling more houses on my nights and weekends for friends and contacts and referrals than I was doing anything at work during the day. So I went in and resigned and really woke up the next day as a realtor. And it wasn't a good thing. I have to be honest, just the idea of being kind of a normal, quote, realtor really makes me a little bit sick. And I think that's just because the public perception of what and who realtors are is not very good. And the sad truth is it's probably pretty fair, though. Unfortunately, the average realtor doesn't do a lot, doesn't commit full time, doesn't really invest in expertise and innovation and really delivering a lot of value. So anyway, I woke up and I was a realtor and I wasn't real thrilled about it. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty committed to starting to build a business for myself that was different. So I started to look at every different business model that I could lay eyes on, listen about, talk to someone about, buy someone breakfast, coffee, lunch, dinner about. And interestingly enough, came across a national franchise that sounded interesting, and I had done okay, fairly well for a new agent, and so invested in that, and for 5 years really worked at building that franchise model. Learning, somewhere about midway through that really didn't have the best fit with kind of who I was and core values. Great company, good honest people, but just not really the business I wanted to build. So I began to really look at how I could innovate, how I could create a model myself that I thought would best serve the consumer, the buyer, the seller, the investor. Also, that would really, really serve agents that would be on my team really well, so that they could make a great living and still have a life and have a great life. And it would serve me as an owner well. And I'm passionate about lots of different things, and volunteering and serving and hunting and fishing, and I've got kids and a wife that I love a lot and friends, and like to have season tickets to a couple of different things. So I wanted a life I could enjoy, where I wasn't attached to my cell phone constantly and having to just grind it out. So that's where the ideas for the model that we have now started to really originate. And so I did let that franchise go after 5 years, and for quite a while now have been building the model that we have now, and have kind of been building my mindset and my approach to the real estate business, to a place where we are now, but obviously recognizing that we're constantly growing and innovating and messing up and fixing things. And so that's a kind of a snapshot of how I got into the business, and how kind of the million-mile-an-hour version of how we got where we are. That could be a 10-day long answer, but that's where we are.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've seen pretty much every side of the business, from investor to franchise owner to being an independent broker.
Yeah, I've there's always something you don't know, and I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I'm not dumb enough to say I've seen it all, and I'm certainly not crazy enough to say that I've done it all. But I have been fortunate to start out really as an investor with an outside-in perspective of what a real estate professional looks like, and honestly with a pretty negative opinion of a typical real estate agent, and that's what they teach you in investor training, is that all real estate agents are idiots. And then just a couple of brushes with traditional home buying and selling. What I had heard is people were typically pretty disappointed with their real estate professional. And then getting to see it as an investor, then getting to see it as a very young, very much struggling agent with a broker that I really never once had a conversation about how to buy, how to sell, how to represent, how to generate a lead, how to convert, even how to remain honest and ethical. Not that he was doing any of that wrong. We just didn't. He was distant. He was actually in another city. It was just kind of a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of relationship. Then moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth market and connecting with a bigger brand broker, but a straight 100% kind of broker that again had really no vested interest in investing in me or teaching or training or even modeling. As a matter of fact, I don't remember ever meeting that broker and don't know her name. I do remember that it was a woman, and there was an office manager. I'm not making that up. I couldn't tell you her name. If I saw her, I wouldn't know her. Just paying a fee for a mailbox and a copy machine that I could pay more fees to use, and really just trying to piece together what does it look like to do this right. And so, fairly early on realizing that I wasn't going to figure this out on my own, and understanding that I needed coaches and trainers and books and binders and programs and mentors. And so that's where I really started having a mentality of find who knows what you need to know and fly to them, call them, pay them, beg them, trade value with them, whatever you need to do to learn what you need to learn. And so that's starting to get the perspective of what a successful agent looks like after being and seeing what an unsuccessful agent looks like, and then realizing that there's a million perspectives even within the small community of successful agents. There's the guy that's building a brokerage where he wants 300 agents, and there's the gal that's building a team that really wants to be the producer but just wants support. And then there's the guy that's building kind of the hybrid of that, where I want a team but I want it to be a little bit larger, where we're all producing. And then there's the perspective of I don't really want to produce anymore, but I want to have people on my team that are directly on my team that are producing, that I'm mentoring and training and coaching. And then there's everything in between. So yes, I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of different perspectives, but I'm always intrigued when I get on the phone with agents in other parts of the country, or honestly other parts of the world, that are selling different property types, that are selling in different markets, that are selling with different methods, that have different fee structures, that have different value propositions, that have different methods of delivery, the online only guys, the old school low no technology guys, and there's merit to almost all of that. So yes, I've been fortunate to see it from a lot of different perspectives, but I'm always intrigued how many more there are that I can always learn more about or test, and implement and try to learn and take pieces from. So it's exciting how much opportunity there is in the real estate world, and it's also sometimes a little overwhelming how many different options there are, and how they can all be successful. So
That's great. I do understand you've written a couple books, and one of them was actually an Amazon bestseller. Tell me real quick about those.
yeah, so I've been fortunate to really enjoy writing. I can remember a class I took in, I think, 11th grade called Rhetoric and Composition that I actually hated, but I learned a lot from. So ironically, kind of always wanted, to write a book, and that's only ironic because, a lot of times realtor isn't associated with, the smartest guys in the room. And again, I'm not saying I am, but I enjoy writing, so I put together my first book, which was self-published, and really the goal of that was just to communicate a strategy that my wife and I have benefited from with our clients and our prospects. I found myself repeating this strategy over and over and over, and people were really benefiting from it, and they were kind of asking for follow-up, and could you tell me that again, and what were you saying about that? And so I thought, let's just get this in writing, and then I can share it. So again, quick self-published deal, really short, literally physically small book, could be read in about an hour, and got great response from it. Never really intended to sell a bunch of copies. We sold some for sure, and actually had to go into a second printing of the book, but the goal wasn't to get rich selling that book. It was to really add value for our clients, and it did that well. Then I was really fortunate several years later to have a publishing group that was looking for a group of what they called innovative, positive, kind of optimistic real estate professionals. At that time, there was very little optimism and innovation in the real estate world. There was a lot of negativity and anger, and people were, escaping, as if the building was on fire. So I don't even remember, 30 or 40 of us got together, and we each wrote a chapter and contributed to a book that really turned out to be kind of a cool deal. So they really asked me to repurpose my content that I had in my original book and condense that to a chapter of the new book, which did end up being a bestseller on Amazon in like 7 or 8 different categories, and #1 in some categories that honestly surprised me. The categories that you would want as a real estate professional, like real estate and real estate marketing and things like that. So it was a huge, a lot of fun and a great experience, and a real privilege to be involved with some of the really impressive people that were involved with that project. And then really the proceeds from that book went to an organization called Marketers for Good, which is really cool. They were doing financing for microfinancing projects in places like Haiti, where stuff like that can really make a difference. So that was a lot of fun. That book too has been a huge benefit to our clients, because then again, not only my content, but other friends of mine and successful agents and brokers and really, really top guys from all over the country have some really good stuff in there too. It's been fun to meet and get to know some of those guys at conferences and on panels and speaking and interviewing and that kind of thing. So, the book has been helpful for our clients in a huge way, and it's been helpful for our team as a way to generate business, as well as for recruiting and for marketing purposes, and it's gotten us the opportunity to be on the radio some and do a little television and all kinds of stuff all over the web and publications all over the world. So the book's been a lot of fun and a good piece of the business.
That's great. One thing I understand is that you offer something a little bit more unique. So let's talk about your brokerage and your team a little bit. I understand you've been getting a lot of calls from agents all over the country just who are hearing about some of the unique things that you're doing and just trying to figure out what the heck is this guy all about? What's this unique value that everyone's interested in?
Yeah, that's funny. It's interesting because, it's important to me to always know that I need to learn, and so I'm constantly seeking out what other people have that I can learn from and how I can share with them. And so, a lot of times you feel like I need to provide some sort of value in exchange for what I'm asking this other person to share with me. And so really, it's funny how often you don't realize how unique what you have is. And so just through the process of masterminding and sharing with other successful agents around the country, really around the world, I started getting some feedback that what we were doing was a little bit more different than maybe I even knew, and started getting calls, like you said, for people saying, hey, could I fly in and spend a couple of days with you learning what you guys are doing, and really I had to start asking, what is it that you most want to learn from us, and so probably the number one thing that people consider unique about us is our fee structure and our value proposition. And what I mean by that is, commissions are negotiable and they're not set by law, and different people charge different things. But unfortunately, there's a big chunk of the real estate market that has just fallen victim to kind of commoditization, where they've allowed themselves and their product or service to be made a commodity. And that should never be the case in a service industry, where we're serving the needs of homeowners, investors, buyers, sellers. We're not all the same. We don't all offer the same services, and we don't all provide the same value or have the same level of expertise or the same systems or the same teams or the same resources. So people were really curious how we were charging more, and how we were providing more value to our clients. There's a lot of other things that people are asking for and that we have the privilege to share with them, but that's probably the key thing. So just to give an example, our typical fee to a seller in our market is about 50% higher than what most consumers assume is the average price. And if you know the actual numbers, it's about 70% higher than the actual average listing commission.
Man, that's wow.
Yeah, it's fun,
Yeah.
and it's good. It's good for the team, and it's good for our agents, and it's good for me as an owner. But most importantly, and don't let me overlook, I like making more money. But most importantly, it's allowing us to invest more into the process of doing a lot of different things, of spending the money to acquire the kinds of clients that we really want to work with. Of really investing in our clients once we have chosen to work with somebody, providing a world-class experience for them, where we're not trying to save money on printing this or providing that. We're saying, we've got a budget here to provide a phenomenal experience. What else could we do for them? We're also able to really invest in the process of becoming world-class experts. So I'm able to fly my team all over the country to sit and learn from the best of the best. And I'm able to be, hopefully, one of the best so that I can teach them those things. So I'm able to invest in my own development and my own education and being part of mastermind groups where I'm in the room with people that are light years ahead of where I am. And then I'm able to turn around and lead mastermind groups and be that to some other folks. And I'm able to spend the time writing and learning and training and equipping. But again, most of all, able to provide a value to our clients, where our sellers on average will get 6.7% more for their house than the guy down the street with basically the same house in the same market. The difference is he's got somebody else marketing it for him. He's got a different, quote, realtor. And then, our buyers are able to purchase homes at lower prices or better terms or with a much better ease of purchase than their competition. And we're able to be compensated at a higher level, on both sides of that. Which obviously means I'm able to compensate my agents better and our support staff. And we're able to provide a better environment for them, where our agents aren't working out of the back seats of their cars, or they're not working out of their house because they have to. They're not working out of a cubicle where they can, touch three sides at once, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with those things, and that's how some people prefer to do business. But for our team, we're able to provide, some things that make life and work a little bit better and a little bit more enjoyable, and we get great feedback and we have good retention because of that.
That's great, and I'm blown away at the results that I've heard and the excitement over your unique value that you guys provide. So I got to ask, how do you determine what you guys are worth?
Yeah, how much time do you have? So that's settle in. The short answer to how do you decide what you're worth is, what do you want to be worth? And I'll say that again. The way I decide how much I'm worth is I start with what do I want to be worth, right? And then I set out to go and make sure that I become worth that amount. And that might sound a little woo-woo or whatever, but I have a firm belief that we're capable of doing pretty much anything that we want, And most people have attributed this to Henry Ford. I'm not 100% sure he's the one that coined it, but whether you believe that you can or you believe that you cannot, you're right. So if you believe that you're capable of achieving something, I believe you can. You just got to believe it enough to go take action on that. So, if I believe I'm worth, 5% to sell your house, then that's probably what I'm worth. If I believe I'm worth 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, I've just got to find a way to become worth that. So the commoditized world says, well, everybody's worth this, whatever this is in your market or whatever. And if I'm willing to just kind of slump back to average, maybe that is what I'm worth. My belief is that even when there's an average number in the market, it's just what people are used to saying, and doesn't cause a lot of fear or frustration, so everyone's settled on that. Even that number is not really based on an exchange of value. Mm-hmm. But my belief, again, is whatever you want to be worth, you decide, and then you find a way to provide that much value. So, if we're both selling the same widget, and you sell it for $5, but I decide I want to sell it for $10, I can find a way for someone to be more than willing to pay me $10 for that. It may actually be the same widget. Now, I'm confident that our service is not the same, but even if it was, I may deliver it to your door where you ship it. Mm-hmm. I might ship it overnight with a handwritten note on how to use it to your maximum ability, where you might ship it 10-day postage in an ugly box. Mm-hmm. I might give you 30 minutes of my time and demonstrate how to use that best for you. So there's a million ways to look at this, but in the world of residential real estate, you might say that the most important thing for a consumer is results. I wouldn't argue with that. There are certainly other very, very important aspects, but if my client is going to get 6.7% more for his house than your client, it could be argued that I'm worth 6.7% more than you are. Now, typically we're not charging 6.7% more than our competition, but there's a reason to argue that there's that amount of value to negotiate over, right? So my belief is that I'm worth whatever I believe I'm worth, as long as I'm able to deliver that much or more value to the client. And obviously our goal is to provide way more value than Absolutely. That.
Yeah.
So someone's getting a multiple of maybe the difference I'm charging versus a competitor, which is a funny word in our world. I'm not real sure we really have true competitors, but there are other options for our clients and our prospective clients. So to get back to the original question, my answer to how, to what are we worth is what we decide we're worth. A market answer might be, that's a formula, that's a factor of the value that you deliver. Mm-hmm. The general perspective is you're worth what everybody says you're worth. What I try to do is encourage, agents and team leaders and brokers and owners that I work with, is to ignore what the general market, what the conventional wisdom is. Differentiate, set yourself apart from that, choose your value, and then get to work providing that much value and more. And constantly work at increasing the amount of value, and you may choose to constantly look at increasing, your income, your profitability, your fee, but you find an amount that the market is willing to accept when they understand your value.
That's a great point. And one of the things you said that really stood out to me was just a dedication, making sure you provide more value than really what you're asking from clients. So on that note, how do you communicate that to clients? I'm sure you get questions once in a while from them.
Yeah, well, to go back to a comment you just made, going the extra mile is an old Napoleon Hill, line from Think and Grow Rich and 7 other of his books probably. But the idea of, even biblically, giving more than has been asked of you. My philosophy is always, we win relationships, which is what we really want. Mm-hmm. It's not a client that we want. It's not a deal that we want. It's not even a commission check that we want. We want to win trust and a relationship with our ideal clients. And we want that to incorporate them seeing us as an expert, them seeing us as their only professional that they would work with in this field, that they would see us as the person for anything that even is remotely related to real estate whatsoever. And that's a huge piece of that, is going that extra mile. So where somebody might say, oh my gosh, I couldn't charge more, people would yell at me, people would ask me to drop my fee, people would never pay me that much. The question is, can you find a fee that you're worth, and you're worth way more than that? So if my fee is worth more than your fee, and my fee is higher than your fee, and my value is more than yours, but my value is even worth more than my fee, now we're getting someplace where somebody can say, I don't really care what your fee is. Sure, I know someone will do it for less, but I don't think they'll do what you just told me you'll do. And to me, it sounds like what you're going to do is worth even more than you're asking me to pay you.
Wow, yeah.
That's when we get to a model that really starts to work, So, I'm sorry, but what was this question?
The question was, how do you communicate all of this to the clients? I'm sure, talking about it with other agents is much different than whenever you're sitting in front of clients.
Right, yeah. So I love this. I mean, this is where this is the wheelhouse. I was a psychology major twice, somehow still without a psychology degree, but I did get a communications degree, so now we're putting it together. So, chair squeak. So how do we communicate the unique value that we have to offer? And kind of part of that is, how do we communicate the fee that we're asking somebody to pay us? So this is, we can hit this from a lot of different angles, but the beginning of that answer is with confidence. So first of all, you've got to believe that you really are worth it. So the answer to how do you decide what you're worth is you just decide. Well, that doesn't mean you believe it yet. You're telling yourself, I want to be worth X percent or X number of dollars per hour or whatever it is. Then you've got to set out to being worth that. And that process involves growing your belief in yourself, your faith in yourself and your value. And true faith is evidenced by the action you take based on that faith, based on that belief. So if my belief and faith in my value is strong enough that I can then take confident action on that, that's compelling to somebody else. So the way that we start to communicate that first is with confidence. So, if you were a new agent on my team, you would not be out there communicating your value to a prospective client until you had an abundant amount of confidence and faith that you were worth what you were going to go ask for. And so that incorporates a significant amount of training and coaching and witnessing that value being delivered by myself or another team member, or another agent in some other part of the country that's utilizing our system or something like that. So it starts with confidence. The second thing is you find some compelling ways to do that, and there's just strategy around, how do we communicate with the prospect in a way that they're comfortable being communicated with? And that could be different for different prospects. But, one of the unique things that we do with our prospective sellers is we bring them into our office. And to some people, they're like, that doesn't make any sense. They want me to sell their house, and their house isn't in my office, For 26 years, I've been going out to the house because I got to see it. Well, conventional logic would say that makes sense. What I would say, and what I've learned bits and pieces of from other people and built some of our own systems around, is before we ever get to the house, we need to have a discussion about your situation, who you are, who I am, and the value that I have to offer you. And if we decide that those things click, that you're a great client for me and I'm a great service provider for you, then let's talk about a house. But your house doesn't matter at all if you don't believe in my value and my system. And your house doesn't matter at all if your situation is not one where I can help. It also allows me to get on neutral ground. If anything, I've got a little home court advantage, but it's not about my home court. It's about taking that prospect and putting them in an environment where they can make a logical, informed decision, as opposed to being in a home wrapped in emotion where, when they look over at the kitchen counter, they remember giving their baby their first bath in that sink. It's like
Yeah.
that's hard to detach from.
Absolutely.
And so we want to get them into an environment where, again, they can be communicated with in a way that they can be receptive, and a way that they can really give themselves the freedom to make a wise decision without that emotion. So that's one piece of it. The way we do that on our team is with some technology. We've got mounted TVs, and but we also sometimes use a simple flip chart. So I think clarity and simplicity is a big piece of how you communicate that. Another way is through evidence of success, through examples, through social proof, saying, look, we've got a list a mile long of people that have called in, written in, sent us videos on how this worked for them. Another way to communicate that is by tracking that data and being able to say, here's our numbers. One of the big marketing messages that we've been communicating for the last year is that over 84% of the homes that we sell in less than 30 days.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun too.
Yeah.
People respond to that,
Yeah.
and 46% of the homes that we sell in less than 2 days. So that makes sense, and that communicates a track record of consistent, predictable, repeatable results. So when I'm communicating my value and the value of my service, this is not new. This is something that has worked many, many times. And then, again, the teams and the agents and the brokers that I work with are able to leverage that. They're not creating a new system necessarily. They're taking my system and maybe customizing it, but then they're able to say, this system produces these results. And so you communicate that, based on a track record of results. And there's a million other aspects of that, but you support it with social proof, you do it with confidence, you do it in an environment that's comfortable and, persuasive. You preempt the doubt that somebody might have, the rebuttal that somebody might have, and you make sure you've got a great presentation that does that, answers questions before they're asked. And okay, so if I'm charging a higher fee, I'm going to get the question, but somebody else will do it for this. Unless, as part of my presentation, I mentioned, well, of course, you have many, many options, and with those options come different levels of value. And so if I finish that conversation and I've presented that well, someone's like, well, no way I'm asking for the lower thing, because obviously that guy's going to do less. And you say that because it's true, because you've gone out and made sure that you deliver on the value that you're going to charge.
Absolutely.
So, again, that answer could be expanded on for a significant amount of time, and we may come back to that, but that is a vastly important piece of the puzzle, is how you communicate your value and your fee structure.
Absolutely. And if you can't communicate your value to the client, obviously there's not much of a business there. It doesn't matter how much value you actually provide. I know you mentioned team members a few times.
Yeah.
How do you get the other team members and some of the agents on your team to do this really well?
That's a great question, and actually I was just about to add, to that last point. We've had team members in the past that really couldn't get to a point of real faith and confidence in their own value. And usually that's rooted in a history of not being able to deliver world-class value, not being able to really do what they set out to do. And so they've, a history of not being able to achieve their own goals has kind of put them in a place to really not believe that they might be able to hit it out of the park or exceed value. And so those people just haven't worked out on our team. Great people, really, really honest, really, really genuine, lots of effort, but just not really being able to believe completely in the value. We've also had people on our team that's why they joined our team, because they already knew, I'm different, I have more value, I wanted to deliver at a different level than what is being asked of the general, quote, realtor community. That they knew they wanted to do more, provide more, be more, have better relationships, deliver better value, and so they were drawn to our team for that, and they jumped right in week 1 or 2, no fear, no lack of confidence in asking for a higher fee and delivering more value, and hit the ground full sprint and delivered world-class value, built fantastic client relationships, immediate referrals, immediate repeat clients, great income, and really, really, really enjoying what they did. And that's a testament, again, to how do you communicate that to your team. But on a broader scale, how do you then get other people on your team, new and old, to go and do this as well? How do you leverage yourself through team members there? It's a training process, and again, it's slowly if need be, but ideally pretty quickly, building their confidence, building their faith in the process. So a lot of that is allowing them to witness the success of other team members, of clients, of showing them some of those success stories. We do client appreciation events, minimum once a year, usually twice a year, and so letting a team member mingle with 30, 40, 50 or more past clients that like you enough to come have a hamburger in the park, or watch a movie with you and your team, or go to a ball game, or whatever it is that you do, and seeing the gratitude in them that they were ecstatic that they were able to be one of your clients, able to pay you what you asked, fully aware that they had, quote, cheaper options, but they were ecstatic at how the value you delivered changed their life. We've got people that have come to us and said, we want to sell our house, but we're pretty sure we can't because we talked to 3 other agents, and by the time we paid closing costs and by the time we paid their fees, we just don't have enough equity to sell their house. And we said, look, we believe we can sell your house for more because of the marketing and the systems and the value that we're able to create, because we're going to charge you more. Well, that doesn't really sound logical on the surface, well, the other guys couldn't get our house sold because we couldn't afford to pay their fees and closing fees. And I'm saying, well, I can because I'm going to charge you more. Well, it doesn't make sense in the logical kind of commoditized world, but when you're able to communicate that value, and when your team members are able to see someone else that understood that, agreed to that, asked for that, and then reaped the benefits of that, that team member now has got another tool in his belt for confidence and so that he or she can then go communicate that value and say, we had a family just recently that was not able to get out of a home, and they met with 6 different agents, and every one of them told them they couldn't sell their house for enough to cover the cost and the fees, and so they either needed to stay there forever, let it go to foreclosure, or consider selling it as a short sale, which was going to wreck their credit. We were then able to come in, and because of this system, because of the value that we are able to offer, we were actually able to sell it faster and for more money, and still collect our fee, which we recognize is higher. But they were able to get out of that home, actually walk away with a little bit of cash, and then we were able to help them buy a home that was a better fit for their family. As a matter of fact, I was talking to them just the other day over a hamburger at one of our client appreciation events at how much they appreciated that we had something different to offer as opposed to the other 6 agents they met that were, for the most part, the same.
Absolutely, that's incredible, and I can just see how passionate and excited you are about this, and it's getting me excited. Real quick, I wanted to ask you. I know you keep talking about providing more value and taking some of these higher fees and investing it back into the client experience. You've mentioned a few times to me what a typical agent uses for a marketing budget and what you guys use. Can you talk a little bit more about that and? Just what are some of the averages that people invest in clients, and what do you think are it's appropriate?
It's really funny. That's a great question because we talk to our clients about this. And I'm in Dallas, Texas. It's one of the largest markets in the country. Certainly one of the most competitive real estate markets in the country. Certainly for the last decade or so, it's been one of the healthiest real estate markets in the country. So there's every possible reason to believe that there's a lot of competition in our market. There's a lot of different options for clients. So the way that we approach providing more value is careful because people have so many alternatives. So it's interesting that NAR does research on this. The National Association of Realtors, who, I'll be careful not to get up on that soapbox right now because it takes me a while to get down. But they do research on their own membership, and so they say, obviously they want this to look good. Mm-hmm. So they're going to do everything they can, hopefully ethically, but they're going to do everything they can to make sure that these results are favorable. And their results, last time I checked, said that the average agent was spending around 104, I think it was 126, I don't know. I think it was 104, and then several years later it was 126. Huge growth, yeah. Per month to market all of the homes that they had on the market.
Wow.
Now, that may be due to the fact that most of those agents don't have any homes on the market, but it also may be due to the fact that you and I know, for the most part, that the average agent is going to stick a sign in the yard, stick it on the MLS, and then hope and pray that it sells. Yeah, when I get a little riled up, I'll tell clients, that most agents put a sign in the yard, put it on the MLS, crawl under their desk, cross their fingers, and hope somebody shows up with a contract. So it may not be exactly that bad, but it's pretty close more often than it should be. But so anyway, the average agent is not spending a lot of money, time, effort, or energy investing in the process of marketing a home, or being an expert negotiator, or having a staff, training a team, having space, resources to provide world-class value. So some of the ways that we do that are providing professional home staging. So when we work with a seller, 96 times out of 100, we're going to, as part of our program, we're going to pay phenomenal home stagers to come in and not just put fake fruit in the kitchen and throw a rug over ugly parts of the carpet. We're talking full on hours and hours in the home, physically lifting, moving, replacing, swapping furniture, decor, recommending paint changes, repairs and updates, and really transforming a home to what I call the cupcake factor, which is, our clients kind of chuckle at this one, but if you've ever been to a little kid's birthday party, you've probably seen this, where a little kid wants a cupcake, so he grabs it and he licks it. Well, he may not be eating it right now, but he has now marked his territory and claimed that cupcake. Nobody else is eating that one, right? Well, that's what we want to create in a home, is we want a buyer to walk in and say, I'm not leaving. This one's mine. I don't want anyone else to be able to have this one. What do I have to do to mark my territory, lick this bad boy so that no one else can get it? How much do we need to pay, and how quickly do we need to do it so that this is my home? And I get a little riled up about that because we have the ability to create that experience. But how many times have we seen, instead, you walk in and there's dirty laundry and it smells like last night's dinner and there's a dog running around loose and the sign says, don't let the cat out. So now I'm considering buying your house and you've given me a job to do, right? So, staging is one of those pieces. We've got someone, usually several people, that are going to come into the home that are professionals. And I'm not talking about, your sister-in-law that likes to decorate a little bit. I'm talking about, certified, trained professionals that are not trying to make a house just look good, but that are trying to make a house present as more valuable and more ready to be purchased. It's different than interior design. That's one piece. I'm a big believer in pre-inspections. And so that's part of our process, is having an inspector come out. Now, I understand in certain scenarios that's a bad idea. And so for the people that would disagree with me on and talk about the obvious negatives of a pre-inspection, sometime I recognize that, and sometimes you may not do that. But a lot of the time it's a really great idea, and it can be very, very, very helpful because it can allow us to eliminate some major negatives before a buyer finds those. And what may be a $500 problem for seller and me today is going to be probably a $2,500 problem when the buyer brings it up in a few weeks. So we believe in pre-inspections. Also, a clean inspection report is a very powerful marketing tool. So an ugly inspection report just means we need to turn it into a clean inspection report. And then we need to turn around and market that to a buyer as a pre-inspected home. I mean, all of us have seen brands like Lexus make millions and millions and millions of dollars with the idea of pre-owned, certified pre-owned, whatever their phrasing on that is. But we're able to turn around and market a home as pre-inspected, certified pre-owned. We've already done the legwork of making sure there's no major problems. So we turn around and market a pre-inspection report as, here's what we discovered, here's what we fixed by licensed, reputable professionals, here's receipts, and here's warranties. And now a buyer goes, oh man, these people are on the ball. I no longer have to look under the rugs and in the medicine cabinets for all the stuff they're hiding from me, because they came right out with it, did the homework, it's a well-maintained home, and obviously because of that, buyers are willing to pay more for these houses, move more quickly, be a little bit more competitive, because they know other buyers are going to think the same thing. So pre-inspection is a big piece of that. I also, really believe in, we're able to provide more value when we communicate our process to our seller. So our sellers need to understand what it is that we're doing for them. So, there's about a 3-day conversation we could have on all the ways that we market a property once it's been positioned, for world-class value, once it's been prepared, and prepped for the market. So, an aggressive online presence, and so this we put your house on 500 websites tagline, has been beaten to death by every agent on the planet, because they really put it on one website that then spits it out to a couple of hundred other websites. And most markets in our country, most of the bigger markets, you put it on your local MLS and it's going to spit it out to all that other stuff. So it's almost accidental whether you wanted to or not. But I don't blame people for using that as a marketing advantage. But certainly, if you're going to ask for more value from them, you need to provide more value for them. So, of course, we deliberately go out, and we've got, a marketing coordinator on our team, and we've got a listing coordinator as well. But even if you don't have those people, you're able to do more than simply all the aggregators that are there. And going into each one doesn't make sense right now, but we're on, last I checked, 4,400 websites or something like that. And people are online. NAR does research every year. Last time I checked, right around 90% of home buyers are finding the house they want to buy online. And first-time home buyers is higher than that. So, if you're in a first-time home buyer price point or market, it's absurd. You'd have to try really hard to find a buyer that's not looking online. So that's a huge, huge piece of that. And, you can go further. Just being online doesn't mean anything. I mean, if you've ever been online looking around, I'm sure you've seen plenty of houses that are online and look horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd be better off if they weren't online, because, the picture of the bathroom where I can see the realtor's arm in the mirror hurts you more than it helps you. The picture of the front of the house at night in the rain hurts you more than it helps you. The property that's been on the market for 12 days with no pictures hurts you more than it helps you. The property that's online with no dimensions for the rooms hurts you more than it helps you. Now, those things are obvious. But now, the property that's got good pictures compared to my property that's got phenomenal pictures can't compete. So we hire, high-end photographers to come out and spend hours and hours and hours at the property with the big umbrella flash things and the mobile cameras and the remote things and the different angles. And a guy that I used to use for a long time used to put his tripod on top of his car in the front yard to get the right angle, and so luckily we've found better technology for that kind of thing now. But it's important to go the extra mile there to get phenomenal world-class photography. And that sounds really simple, but when we share with our prospective sellers, believe it or not, photography goes under our technology and innovation part of our our value presentation. It's a simple technology, but it's absurdly powerful, because if your house looks terrible online, I just go to the next one. And even in a low inventory market, in a market like mine, there's 20,000 other houses. Even in your price range, there might be 300. So if it looks bad online, they're moving on to the next one. So you've got to have phenomenal photography. Research, I could talk about for hours and hours and hours, but the virtual tour stuff is nice. The YouTube videos are fine. There's some marketing benefit to those things. But what the consumer wants is high quality still photos and lots of them. So that's another way that we provide more value, is we've got great photos, which communicates more value to the client. There's then there's a connection between that photo and the property. So we got to be careful not to oversell a property in the photo, so when they arrive at a property, it's not a disappointment. You impress them with the photo, and then you take it a step further at the property, which we did with the staging. And then there's everything in between. How do we schedule that showing? How do we follow up with an agent or a buyer that's requested information about our property? We are investing in expertise in our team that then returns value to the client. So to get all the way back to this question, which is how do you actually provide, some of that value that you've been communicating? These are the ways, and we can keep going for hours and hours and hours, but one of the biggest things is through your team members. And if you are your only team member, then it's through your expertise and your excellence and investing in all of the pieces of the transaction, not just on getting a lead, converting a lead, and surviving a deal. But am I communicating in a way with my client that makes them happy, stress-free, and excited? Am I communicating with the prospective buyer or their agent in a way that tells them, I need to proceed quickly, I need to make a high offer, and I need to ask for very little junk. And then I need to be grateful that they're willing to work with me through the inspection process and beyond. And I need to be more than happy to use their title company or closing attorney and any vendor that they request, demand, any documentation that they request or demand, any timelines that they request or demand. These all deliver value to the client, but they're not the most obvious things that people are asking for or looking for when they're hiring. I could think of several really obscure things that nobody would ever ask for. Like when you're looking to hire an agent, it may not make any sense to you to ask what someone's negotiation credentials are. You might just assume, they're a licensed agent. But it might alarm you, and it certainly has scared the crud out of a lot of our clients to know that in the state of Texas anyway, there is exactly 0 hours of required negotiation training to become a licensed real estate professional. And the scarier thing is there are 0 hours of negotiation training required to be a real estate broker.
Jeez.
So, at no point is an agent even held accountable to having any ability to negotiate a contract. Now, you have to know where the contract is, and you have to use the right one. And I hope and pray at some point you spent some time reading it and understanding it. But there's no required training on how to use it to your client's advantage. There's some required training on how to use it legally. And then there's no required training on how to negotiate outside of the simple required document. How to communicate with a prospect, how to write a description, how to write a flyer, how to respond to an offer, how to treat time in a negotiation process, how to treat other parties, how to communicate with your client, how to communicate bad news, how to celebrate good news, how to write specific language that's going to require specific responses. I mean, the negotiation is a huge piece, and I'm sure we'll get to that later, but that's just the first few things off the top of my head on how we communicate value. So I could, I get a little fired up.
Absolutely. It sounds like all of those things absolutely are costing probably a few dollars more than $126 per month. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah. So that's a good point. You did ask that question. So our average budget per month is, I was trying to think of a multiple. It's well beyond $10,000. So what's that? 100 times?
Yeah, it's
what the average agent is doing.
About.
And not everybody's an average agent. There's other good agents out there, but what this system allows you to do is invest more in that process. Invest more in your marketing, invest more in your team, invest more in your resources and in your process so that the consumer gets a phenomenal value.
Yeah, that's incredible. It sounds like you guys are bringing a gun to a knife fight, really, and just blowing the competition out of the water. Just being able to reinvest these this extra revenue into the client, and really, at the end of the day, you're really helping somebody have a better experience, have a better result, and you've obviously seen some people whose lives are changed from it.
Yeah, and just, you got me thinking about a few other things. Good old-fashioned sales, like you remember when when everybody wasn't so scrutinized for everything, and it was really, really common that, a sales guy would entertain a client or would woo them some. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what's fun about sales. And if you're going to be in the real estate industry, you're selling something. Whether it's a house or a service or your team or whatever it is, you're communicating and persuading. So it's fun to take a client to a ball game. It's fun to take a client to an absurdly expensive dinner. And to have them leave feeling like this relationship is valuable to me. The guy didn't just open the door to a house and find a way to fumble his way through a contract and get it done for me. Like, that he's sharp. He provides phenomenal value. She's a lot of fun. She remembers things. She cares about me and my family. And, she's given me some gifts, and she's provided some phenomenal experiences for me that I wouldn't have had any other way. And you start to bring the term realtor out of the, doldrums of respect and back into, the right, community of value that it belongs in, and on this idea of communicating value and delivering value, when we work with a client, what I say to a client, what I train my team to say to clients, and what I train other agents, all over to do is to reposition your authority and your value. When somebody says, well, I'm going to be meeting with 4 realtors, and we'd like to see what you have to offer as well. There's different schools of thought. Do you want to go in first and just crush it and sign it right there? I like to go in last, and I like to, tell them up front, I'm going to come in last. Don't sign anything. That way I can help you evaluate your decisions. But mostly I want to come in last because I'm going to differentiate in such a way that there's going to be no question. And one of the ways that we do that is we say, you guys have a decision to make here, and we certainly understand that. What we want you to do is to be able to trust my team and me on the same level that you would your CPA, your attorney, or your trusted family doctor. And if you can't trust us that way, if you don't see the authority that we bring to the situation that way, if you don't see the value and the expertise that we bring in that same light, then don't hire us. But certainly, by all means, don't hire anybody that you can't trust on that level, that you couldn't follow their leadership through this process. Because this is that important. It's as important as filing your taxes. It's as important as what an attorney would do for you. You guys are talking about spending $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 on a home. Maybe it's $80,000. But if somebody sued you over that amount of money, how would you then choose the attorney that would represent you in that situation? It probably wouldn't be, your awkward nephew that just got out of podunk law school because you wanted to give him a little help.
Yeah.
But we hear people all the time that hire agents that way. Well, my nephew got his license. I'm going to throw him a bone.
Yeah.
That's crazy, unless your nephew's great. Well, my buddy around the corner just got laid off and he got his real estate license. I want to help him out. Well, if I got sued for $200,000, I'm not selecting an attorney because I want to help him out. I want him to highly effectively and very quickly handle this for me. Well, if I'm going to spend $200,000 on a home, I want that or better, because my home is not a temporary lawsuit. It's my life. It's the center of my world. It's where my kids are going to go to school. It's where I'm going to go to church. It's my commute. It's where, we're going to the grocery store and what restaurants we're going to and what I have to drive through to get home and what I get to drive by to go have fun with my family. There's a lot tied up in that. It's the same thing as a major health issue that's maybe not life-threatening, but a major deal that's going to take some time, energy, and stress, and probably dollars. It's the same as, a major tax liability or, accounting or finance question. So you got to reposition that value and really demand and expect that positioning in the mind of your client, of your prospect. And if you're able to do that, again, this whole picture starts to come in really, really well.
Absolutely. So obviously the revenue, the additional revenue is great, and I'm sure there's no complaints about that. But there's got to be some other benefits other than just revenue. So what are some of those additional benefits?
Yeah. Well, so there's 2 ways to answer this question, and I'll try both. One is completely aside from the dollars. I sleep a lot better at night knowing I've done the absolute best job I can. When I owned the franchise that I did, it was actually a discount franchise, which is ironic. I get that. And I enjoy the irony, by the way. It's a good little juxtaposition. But so, the pendulum has swung the full arch, so we pushed it as far as we could on the charge less, and now it's swung, to where we're usually the highest or one of the highest. But the lesson learned in between those extremes was delivery of value. And I love that, I'm passionate about that. I get fired up about that, and I can be confident and proud of what I do when I know that my constant pursuit is to provide world-class value. So I'm proud of that. My family's proud of that. My friends are proud of that. My clients are proud of that. My team is proud of that. So, there's some real value in being proud of what you do. And that ties into the respect you get in the real estate community. I would not say I received that same level of respect when I was charging a lot less than everybody else. Yeah. When you're pressuring the price down and you're championing that commodity argument, other folks that are putting in a different level of effort and providing a different level of value can become frustrated by that. And I'm actually not. I say, look, do what you want to do, offer what you want to offer, and the market's going to sort it out. But the conventional wisdom when I was the owner of a discount real estate franchise, that we were the scum of the earth and we were ruining the industry, and we were ruining the world, and most of that was not fair, but it's the way it is. But again, the point is, the benefit of this is now I've got agents, like you said, calling from all over the country saying, we want to do what you do. Your model is moving the industry forward. Your model is innovative, and your model is what's going to be left when the internet kills big chunks of what we have in this world. This may be a side note, but it's valuable, so I'll do it anyway. Yeah. But, the early days of real estate, the value of an agent was that we had information other people didn't. So from the early days of no such thing as MLS to the midterm of we've got an MLS, but it's in writing and it's in a book and it gets faxed out every week or it gets printed every month, and we know where the houses are. The only way a consumer could ever know is that they drive around the entire city and write them down and call everyone for the price and the square footage and the bedrooms and bathrooms and the lot size, which nobody would do. So the value was in that we were hiding all the info. And the truth is that never should have been where our value was. The value should have been in expertise and ability to consult and ability to negotiate and understanding the marketplace and understanding indicators of value and indicators of pace and seasonality and expertise, and I could go on and on and on. But it shouldn't have been, we know where the houses are and you have to come to us to get it. Well, the internet's changed that. So you certainly can hold on to what's always been and ride it out and see how long it lasts, but tell that to most of the travel agents, right, who are non-existent anymore. They were selling flights and cruises and vacation packages online, offline, and then all of a sudden Expedia and Orbitz and Travelocity and 5,000 other websites popped up. Absolutely. Where you can find a $99 flight and a $69 hotel room and a half-price Disney trip, and those guys are all now doing something different. I think most of them got their real estate license. But that's not a funny joke, but it hurts sometimes. Tell that to the stockbroker guys that were not experts, but were transaction processors. Hey, you can't buy stock any other way. You got to buy it through me, so I'm going to be an order taker, and I don't have to really be all that great at suggesting any certain purchase, but I'll process it for you. Well, those guys have gone away. But guess what? There still are some niche expert travel guys that specialize in cruises or European travel or Alaskan destinations. And those guys do really well because they're truly an expert in what they do and they provide real value. And as you know, there's some phenomenal investment advisors out there that do really well because they are truly experts and they offer a real value. Are any of those guys considered cheap? No. Well, what's likely to happen in the real estate world is the people who are claiming that their value is that they have the information and others don't are being very quickly run out of the business because people are getting access to it online. Now, they haven't been totally run off yet, but the attempt is pretty clear. The Reaper is coming. But people that are truly investing in being an expert and providing world-class value and are actually delivering that are providing a very nice position for ourselves in the business. So again, that's one reason, aside from revenue, that I enjoy doing what we do. There are many, many others. The referrals that we get are of a significantly different quality than when we were charging less, or even than when we were just, quote, normal. Those referrals were, well, my friend said use you, I don't really know anybody else, might as well. Before that, it was, we've talked to 25 people and you seem to be the cheapest. Well, now it's, my buddy told me that you guys are pretty unique. And believe me, I'm not impressed by the other agents I've met. And he says you guys are a different breed. So he says you're the guy I got to work with. You tell me when and where. Let's get this thing started. I'm happy. I want to have my house on the market by next weekend. What do I need to do?
Wow.
That's a different kind of referral. You tell me where to price it. You tell me which program is best and where to sign. And I'm sure we're going to have to do some stuff to it before we're ready. You just, you tell me what to do. We'll get it done. Give me a date we need to be ready by, and we'll do it. And I'm not making that up. I mean, that's the kind of referral that we all dream about, and the model that we have and are continually building and innovating is creating more and more and more of. So that's another answer to your question. But let me answer it another way.
Okay.
Revenue is one of the reasons we love this, and it's not always just about the profit, though. Again, it's about the experience we can deliver. So let's get it out of the way. We're more profitable than any other model I've ever run, and any other model I'm aware of. The only difference is I do know people that make a lot more money than I do, but they're selling in markets where the ugliest house on the block is $750,000, and I'm in Dallas, Texas, and that's just not the case. We sell some big boys for sure, but the bulk of our market is just not at that price point. But our margins and our profitability is good. But again, the value that we're delivering the client is better than anybody I know as well, and that's because we have that revenue to invest in their experience, not just in the transaction, right? Yeah. So, I always say, so many agents are out there just trying to survive a deal. Dig for a client, beg them to do business with me, offer them whatever I got to offer them to get them to sign whatever I got to sign, even if I ask them to sign something, and then just hope and pray we get to the end zone, and I get a commission check. Well, what the additional revenue allows you to do is some of the things we talk about, having fun with them, providing that experience, but also anticipating their needs, and instead of giving them an answer to where they can find a solution, giving them a solution. So, you're going to need to get this notarized, so here's a place you can go get it notarized, as opposed to we pay someone to be notarized in our office, come get it notarized for free. And that's simple. Yeah. But there are better things, like, hey, we're gonna do a big housewarming party. We want to invite you. That's great. We'd love to show up. Hey, by the way, would it be helpful if we brought folding tables, folding chairs, pop-up tents, drink machines? Wow. These are things that we provide for our clients just so that life is more fun and easier for them. But you can't do that at a discount rate or at a, quote, normal rate. Not if you're still doing a great job for them. There's just no margin. There's no revenue for it. So the experience that our clients have is a phenomenal one, and we do some really, really fun things for our past clients, and then we've created what we call an inner circle of our absolute top referring and repeat use clients, and we do some really awesome stuff for them, quite a few times a year that you just couldn't do if you didn't have the revenue for it. So again, that's just a few pieces of the benefit of that. But
that's incredible. So I know you mentioned that it seems to be more profitable than any model you've ever seen, and I've obviously seen some of the reports and rankings out there about some of these people that are selling 500, 600, 1,000 homes a year. I understand you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to sell 1,000 homes a year. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a pointed question. Because there's a little internal struggle that says, I'm capable of doing this or that, but that may not be best. And again, it may be best for somebody else. I was talking to a guy the other day that sold like 980 houses last year, and he admitted he never wants to do that again. But I do know other guys that sell over 1,000 homes a year with a very different business model, and they love it. But that's not what I want to do. And per transaction, their profitability is so far below what I would tolerate. It's just not. It doesn't line up with my desires, my gifts, my core values, my goals, my passion, my energy, my vision, any of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So we want to do volume, but the priority is to do quality. So quality over quantity. Yeah. It's both. But there's a point where I want to see my wife and kids.
Yeah.
And I want my team members to be doing that. It's nice for us to all climb into a room of business owners, brokers, and team leaders and say, we want balance in our lives, but we want our agents to go sell until they bleed. Well, that's not how I want to do things. I want my agents to have great life stories too. I want my agents to be training and equipping and nurturing their children and loving their wives and husbands well and involved in their churches and kids' schools and sports leagues and taking their boat out and going hunting and fishing and vacationing for as long as they want, wherever they want. And I don't want that to be a fantasy for them. So unless you wanted to have a team so big that you didn't know people's names or do so many transactions that you can't come up for air, then that model isn't ideal for you. So our goal is a nice, healthy balance of transactions and to be as profitable as we can on any deal. Now, some people are afraid of that word because saying that you have a lot of profit seems like maybe you're overcharging or you're under-delivering. Well, neither of those is true or has to be true. What needs to be true is that you find a way to be as efficient as you possibly can at providing phenomenal value that goes way beyond what your client would expect and provides a great income and a great budget for client experience and setting and lead generation and client follow-up and long-term nurture and cash on hand and other investments and recruiting and payroll and all those things. So it comes back to mindset, to some extent, and again, it's like you decide what you want to be worth before you are worth it. Well, you decide what life you want to have before you build a business to give you that life. But very few people do that. You get in the business as a young knucklehead or as a act of desperation or as a backup plan or as a semi-retirement move or whatever, and you have a short-term goal and then you succeed and then you see some other things happening and you start following somebody else's vision or somebody else's plan, which is do more deals. Do more deals, do more deals, do more deals, do more deals. That's what the broker wants. That's what everyone's competing on. That's what the ranking board says, who's doing the most deals. Well, I don't want to be the guy that does $1 bazillion deal. Because if that client never comes back, I'm in trouble. But I don't want to be the guy that's doing 1,000 deals either. So what I do want is to have as many clients as we can handle at a world-class level as possible. And we meaning at a team size that's manageable, where I know my people's names and their kids' names and their husbands and wives and girlfriends and boyfriends' names, and I know what their hobby is, and I can play a part in that. And I want them to know my kids' names. And when my kids come up to the office, I want them to call them by name and pick them up, and I don't want my kids to be freaked out. And that may not be everybody's goal, but that's what I'm creating. And so we try to have a balance of certainly impressive volume for the size team we have, but we want, as part of that, our agents to make a great living. So I don't want to do 300 deals by having 30 agents do 10 deals.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do 300 deals by having 6 agents do 50 deals.
Mm-hmm.
If they want. But I might have an agent on my team that says, 25 would be just right for my lifestyle, my income goals, and I would love to have that agent. What I don't want is an agent that wants to do 12 deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good fit for us. So I hope that in a way answers the question, but the goal isn't, nobody eats and vacations on transactions. We eat and we vacation on dollars and time. We vacation on time and we pay for food and vacations with dollars. But the point is, when you're building a business, you've got to decide what you're building it for. I'm involved with youth ministry and my kids, and they're young and they're growing up, and I want to coach Little League and take them on trips and spend time with my wife and visit family and the ends of the earth and have time to write and do things like this. And you can't do that if you got to have another deal.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you can't settle for not taking another deal that is staring you in the face.
Yeah.
And that's one of the disciplines that you're able to learn with the profitability that comes with this is I don't have to work with every client.
Yeah.
I certainly can turn down the jerks, and I can certainly turn down the unrealistic, over-demanding, even if that's a referral, I can turn that down. But I can work with the kind of people I want to work with because I don't have to get to 1,000 deals.
Yeah.
And I don't have to have this next deal to feed my family.
Absolutely.
And that ties into marketing strategy, which might be a whole nother conversation.
Absolutely,
but how do you attract the exact client you want? This helps.
So if someone wanted to, let's say there's someone building a team and they want to go sell 500 homes a year, is this a model that you believe could be implemented and allow them to sell 500 homes a year?
That's the scary thought. Is absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be, and I've worked with some agents to teach them what we're doing, and they want to do that, and I'm taking notes and watching them, I don't want to do that, and I don't imagine I'll ever want to do that.
So
but at the same time, there was a time when I owned a flat fee real estate franchise, so who knows what I'm going to want to do in 10 years from now. Now, I know pretty certainly that who I am and my core values, that's just not there, but I hope that they knock it out of the park, and the people that have learned this from us and are in touch with us are succeeding with it at significantly more volume than we do, because that's what they want, and that's what they're building their teams and their businesses on, and it's fun to watch and to some extent participate in. Actually, that's funny that you asked that. I forgot about this, but just last night I was talking to an agent that I've worked with in Charleston, and he's really shaken up his model to more agents, more volume, and he's having an absolute blast. Yeah. And on the flip side, recently we did some work with a guy in Colorado that has a much smaller team, and is coming out of a very different background, doing predominantly short sales, and wants to use this model to get him into more profitability and more traditional stuff. And then I've talked with folks as far as Seattle, Ohio, and other parts of Texas. So in different markets, doing it different ways, targeting more volume or a different kind of client or a different price point of home. So
absolutely.
That's something.
So my next question here is just kind of twofold. Why do you think that so many agents do struggle with discussing commissions whenever it's brought up to clients? And the second part is, why do so many people out there assume that there are what we call industry norms or a standard commission?
Okay, let's break it into two. So give me the first one.
So the first one is, why do so many agents struggle with discussing commissions whenever it's brought up with clients? It seems like a lot of people just are uncomfortable with that, with asking to be paid almost.
Yeah, that is a great question. I'm trying to think how I want to answer it, because I could answer that positively or negatively. I'm just going to give you what I give you. It frustrates the crud out of me that this is a reality. Yeah. And it, to some extent, comes back to how people become real estate agents. And the sad truth is, and I'm not afraid to offend some people with this, it's too dadgum easy to become a real estate agent. Now, I'm not saying that the test is easy or that the educational material is 100% horrible. But I am saying that the educational material is not good enough and the test isn't good enough. And the process isn't good enough. And I'm in Texas, so the state portion is different, but the national portion is just as not good enough for all of us. And I don't know anybody in any state that's come to me and said, you know, the process of getting my license was impressive. My wife is a certified public accountant, CPA. I've got lots of buddies that are CPAs. I've got quite a few friends that are attorneys, handful of buddies that are doctors. I've got some friends that are pilots. You're talking about things that not any goofball off the street can just decide one day, I'm going into this industry. CPAs almost virtually required to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, significant additional study, and pass an incredibly difficult test that's costs some real money, takes some real time, and is really stinking hard.
Yeah.
There's some argument to be made as to whether that test prepares you for the task at hand, and certainly that applies to real estate as well. And then there's attorneys, and then there's the LSAT, and those guys, same thing. Undergraduate, graduate school, extensive amount of studying and training, and a test that is brutal, expensive, and incredibly difficult. Then you look at doctors. Holy moly. Undergraduate. I don't even know if you call it graduate school. It's graduate school and then some, and then residency, and then specialized training, and then, being a lackey for a few years and working your way up, and then finally, hopefully a payoff someday. And so you've got, the MCAT. You've got your medical school admissions testing, and then you've got boards, and, you can't become a CPA, an attorney, a doctor, or, even things like being a pilot by accident. You can't become those in a matter of weeks because you had a whim or read a good book. It takes a real commitment, both of time, energy, expertise, finances. Everyone's got to be on board. This is a long-term commitment. While on the other hand, in real estate, I've heard of places you can get a real estate license in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
In Texas right now, it's ballpark 2 months. But even if it's 3 or 4 months, that's an embarrassment. I mean, and I'm just not sorry to say it. I think I've offended people before saying that kind of thing, but I'm not apologizing, because what we do is important and it's valuable, and to treat it as something as simple as, if you can scrape together $500 to $1,000 and do some fairly basic mathematics and learn some new vocabulary and learn some new laws. And again, I'm not saying that it's stupid. I'm just saying it's not good enough for what we are telling people we're capable of. When you sit across and tell someone with character and integrity that you are their very best option to go invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into a home that's going to now impact all the things we discussed before, you really can't say that with real character and integrity if all you've invested in that process is a few $100 and a few weeks. It honestly makes me angry. Yeah. You probably can hear that, and but that's not good. Right? So I've gotten so flustered, I've half forgotten the original question.
Why do so many agents struggle with discussing commissions?
Yeah, so, that's, I would have a hard time telling somebody I'm worth 3%, 6%, 4%, 8%, $5,000, whatever it is, if all I did was scrape together $400,000 or $500,000, do some classes online and, in my underwear after work, while I unemployed or even during college, if that's all I did, and then go take a state test and a national test. Just let me be abundantly clear. I'm not saying those things are terrible, but they're not enough. If that's all I did, I would not be able to sit across from someone and tell them, I am your best option and I'm worth much of anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really don't believe that there's a bunch of lying dirtbags out there. I believe there's a lot of underqualified, undercommitted professionals out there.
Definitely.
Some of them are well aware that they're part-timers or that they're not the most valuable. Some of them are not aware, and it's their fault, but they're a victim of a really, really poorly run system that's perpetuated by a lot of industry junk that I'm not going to get into. But that's a really long intro to an answer. But I think it's important to know that, and it's important for real estate professionals to think through that, and then to use that as part of their value proposition.
Absolutely.
So that brings me to this point, though, which is, why is it so hard? Well, because they haven't invested anything in value.
Yeah.
And then number two, because they haven't been taught or trained to do that. Which is why, if you're not investing in your growth and your education, do me a favor and get out of the business. That's my honest opinion. I wrote a blog entry one time, and I'll be honest, I was deliberately antagonizing a bunch of people on activerain.com, which I'm happy to do, by the way. But so I wrote a blog post titled "If You're Part-Time, Quit." And I don't necessarily mean that in 100% of the scenarios. But if you are deliberately part-time, long-term, you really 95+% of the time you need to get out of the business, because you're not who you say you are. You're not someone's best option. It's highly unlikely that you are really an expert. It's highly unlikely that you're doing enough business to be the best person on contracts and negotiation and property code and marketing and those types of things. I'll caveat it again. I left 5% out because there may be someone that's building their way into the business or semi-retired, but they still are very, very good and do a lot of volume whatever. But most people should not do that. So those are reasons why people would struggle to communicate their value. But again, part of it is that they haven't been trained to do that, and they haven't invested in becoming a real expert, and they just don't deliver that kind of value. They're a deal survivor. What I call it is, you beg for a client, you get one, and you just hope and pray you can survive the deal and get a commission, and if you're really lucky, they'll tell their friends about you. So if that's who you are, it's just natural that you don't have confidence in your fee. Yeah. Now, there is another level of this, though. There's a level where the guy is worth every penny he's asking for, and he's great, but he's still not practiced and confident in his value proposition. And that is literally, that can be solved in a day or two. Mm-hmm. And we do that, with some people is, I know we do way more, and I'm spending more than I should, but I've just always done it this way, and I just don't know how I would do it. Well, you fly to Dallas, Texas, and we'll sit down for a day or two, and by the time you leave, you'll never look back. And we've had that happen, and we've had that result, and we've had people on our team overcome that. So that's a matter of practice and a little bit of language and some scripting and dialogues and some success. I always tell my team, success breeds success. You need a few wins under your belt, and then you'll start winning more often. Mm-hmm. It's not even a level of competency. You could be really good, but you just haven't done this a lot. You see it happen, you see yourself do it well a few times, and then all of a sudden the same exact effort produces a better result, because people see your confidence and your belief in yourself. And so those are a few reasons why people don't. And another one, though, is because they've been challenged on it. Mm-hmm. And listen, we're a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider, so we deal with a lot of clients that are Dave Ramsey followers and otherwise, and conservative, faith-based financial stewardship type advice. And there's a kind of person out there like that that's natural or has been taught to always ask, is that your best price? Mm-hmm. Well, would you do it for less? That's honestly my natural. I love negotiating. I'm going to try. Yeah. So it's not unusual that people are going to ask you to do that. But some people take that as, as an indictment of their value, as opposed to just, that's how business works. Yeah. So some people are intimidated because they've been challenged on their value before, but if you're confident in communicating, you get over that real quick.
That's some great advice and a lot of really great points. So what I'm gonna
Just leave a little gap.
Now, you definitely made some great points there, Todd. One follow-up question I have to that is, why do so many people assume that there are these industry norms or standard commissions or, industry average?
It's a great point, and I can't say that I know the exact answer to that. I would say, the multiple listing system has done some very good things and some very bad things for our industry. Because of the multiple listing system, the vast majority of properties offered for sale in any one market or metropolitan area are all in one place. Mm-hmm. So agents tend to not want to offer less than the next guy or not offer any more than they have to, and so there's pressure to find the quote norm for the market. But again, licensing law says all commissions are negotiable and not set by law. Now that's the battle cry of anybody that wants to do anything other than the norm, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to charge less, you say, well, commissions are negotiable and they're not set by law, and we'll do it for less than them. And if you're charging a little bit more, maybe from time to time that you've got to say, there is no set standard. Mm-hmm. But again, the bigger explanation of that, which we got into before, is commoditization. Mm-hmm. It's not a commodity. So there's no reason that there should be a standard price. Now, even with the MLS, where the buyer agent commission is what is advertised, meaning I have a client, they have a home, if you bring me a buyer, out of my fee, I will give you this much. Mm-hmm. I agree, no matter what, if we get a deal done, this is how much I'm going to give you. And that's really what the MLS says. There's pressure for that to be consistent. Mm-hmm. But nobody really knows or needs to know what's happening on the other side. So if I charge a 555% commission rate, which is of course absurd, and everyone in my market is offering 3.5% to the buyer side, well then I only get to keep 551.5 or whatever the heck it was. But you don't know that. Mm-hmm. You don't know what my total fee was. You know what I offered the buyer agent. My client sure as heck knows because they agreed to it up front and they agreed to whatever value they would receive in exchange for that. So, there's sub questions to that question, but the answer is, the public offering of compensation for bringing a buyer encourages a norm. Mm-hmm. And the consequence of offering less than the norm is a commission-motivated agent, which is a whole nother point because we're all obligated by fiduciary responsibility to do what's in the best interest of our client, not earn the highest commission for ourselves. But logic would say there's going to be some conscious or subconscious impact on whether a buyer agent brings their client to my property if I offer them less or more than what they're used to. Mm-hmm. So if I offer them less, I probably get less showings. If I offer them more, I probably get more showings. Research has showed actually different than that. But anyway, if I offer the norm, I'm safe, and so most people do that, and in most cases I would encourage you to offer the norm to a buyer agent in your market. I would encourage you to earn more on your side mm-hmm. than the norm, because I'm going to encourage you and hopefully help you be worth more on your side. So there's kind of a distinction on why that is. Now, the bigger question, though, is why is there a norm on the total commission? Because there still is. Mm-hmm. So the norm on the buyer agent side is because it's advertised to the world. Yeah. I have a much less reverent answer to why there's a norm on the other deal. It's because people are stupid. Because they just take what the world gives them. Mm-hmm. They say, well, that's the way it's always been done, so that's how I'm going to do it. Yeah. And my broker does it that way. The other agents in my office that are doing some business do it that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do it. And just like every other thoughtless, mediocre result, that's how they get there is mediocrity and thoughtlessness, you know? Like, back to my point I was making a while ago, if you want to build a business, you have to decide what you want to build that business for and actually build a business. You know, the world of real estate is interesting because in theory, as 1099 independent contractors, which the vast majority of realtors are, you're self-employed. Mm-hmm. Now, some brokerages will remind you of that every day because they don't do jack squat for you. Yeah. Other brokerages are a hybrid model of that because they do offer a lot of value and some systems and some structure. Most people are somewhere in between that where they're well aware that they're self-employed because they're paying taxes, and they're well aware that they're responsible for their own outcome, but they're not well aware that they're building a business. Yeah. What they're doing is following a trend or following kind of a historical model or example, and they're, for 30 and 40-year careers, can just constantly think about commission and think about the next deal. Mm-hmm. And they might have some complex, successful systems, but they're focused on income and deal as opposed to systems and structure, sustainability, value, time, balance, those kinds of things. So if you're just at the whim of the market, you're highly likely to charge whatever anybody else is charging and be afraid to ever ask for more and feel stupid if you ever ask for less. Yeah. Which actually brings me to a point you didn't ask about, but I think is hugely important also is, you know, if you're not a commodity, then this is not a one-size-fits-all business. If you have a home, a gorgeous home, on a well-trafficked but not negatively busy street, that you're willing to price below market value, and you and your family keep the home extremely clean and absurdly well decorated and gorgeous, that's going to require less marketing from me than somebody that has a nice home in the boonies that they take very poor care of and nobody would ever drive by it if they wanted to, and you want to price it $100,000 over what it's really worth. So why would my fee be the same for those two properties? Yeah. That's insane. I mean, it literally makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, that's a great point, yeah.
And it's going to cost me more to market a high-end home than a low-end home. It's going to cost me more to market a niche property than a bread-and-butter type property. And so this one-size-fits-all, I charge what they charge, and I charge it on every deal, and I have the same presentation on every deal, and I do the same things on every deal, in my opinion, is abusive and dishonest and foolish. You know, I mean, again, go back to the attorney model. Let's say I did, 50 cases this year, and they were all divorce cases. So they're all the same, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
No, they're not the same. Yeah. You know, I mean, so am I gonna? Are they all worth the same amount of money? Imagine if I went into a courtroom and argued them all the same. You know, we just treated all the kids the same, and all the reasons for the breakups the same, and all the property the same. I mean, it just there's no logic in it anywhere. Yet there are basically generations of so-called professionals perpetuating this mediocrity. Yeah. And again, in my opinion, dishonesty. But it's being paraded around as ethics. Yeah. You know, check out my button on my lapel. I'm the most ethical guy in town because I'm wearing this freaking thing. Yeah. You know, it's just insane to think that way.
Absolutely. No, I mean, those are some strong words, but definitely some great points. So I'd like to kind of wrap up this first section here just asking the same question that I think everybody else is asking, and I'm sure agents that you talk to ask you all the time. Why isn't everyone else doing this?
I could answer that a bunch of... Number one, because I don't want everyone copying. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny how, what's the quote that flattery... the best form of flattery... when somebody
imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, yes.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Yes. I'm going brain dead. So it's funny to see... It's fun to see people, attempt to copy us. And we, from time to time, will even in a transaction, kind of be up against somebody that is modeling our fee structure or one aspect of the value that we have to offer. But these things don't happen overnight. You can put our system into implementation pretty quickly, but it's not overnight, and it's not all just what you see. So it's not easy to imitate. So that part is funny. Of course, we don't want all of our competition doing it. But the second reason is, so many of the questions you're asking are a reflection of the fact that so many agents don't think, don't plan, don't approach it as a business, don't have a true vision long term for a business that's mutually beneficial to the company and the client. And so they would never think to do that. Yeah. Or they think that what we're doing is too hard or dishonest, and we don't get that a lot, but I'm sure it's out there. Or they really believe the consumer won't respond to it, although they visibly see that they're responding to it with us. It's just, people tell themselves all sorts of funny little lies. The biggest, I think, is that people think it's too hard, or they couldn't do it, that there's something special and unique about us. And the reality is there's something special and unique about everyone, but the way we do this, people can do it. Like I said, we've shared this with people in Florida, South Carolina, Texas, South Texas, West Texas, East Texas, North Texas, Central Texas, Washington, Oregon, Ohio, Colorado, California, Michigan, Oklahoma. Just in those are the last conversations I've had. North Carolina. So I'll stop there. But and it works in all those places, and it works at different price points with different personalities and people of all shapes and sizes and colors and creeds and backgrounds, and 1 year into the business and 30 years in the business, and luxury homes and entry level new construction, historical homes. So to your point, I think people believe that there's something special about us. It's really hard to do. It's too complicated. Won't work for them. People find a million reasons not to succeed, and it's so funny because they'll also find a billion reasons to fail or to remain where they are, and that gets into mindset, which I know we'll get into a lot more later. But if you don't believe that you can do it, then you can't, and if you're not willing to be around people that will stretch what you will believe in, it won't happen for you. And that's why things like this are so important, and that's why I'm so excited to share this and share our success and what we've created and learned from other people and implemented and taken from and expanded and taken away from and things like that. So I don't claim to be the smartest guy or the quickest guy, but I do believe that I am capable of doing whatever I want to do, and the people that I choose to work with are capable of doing whatever they want to do, and I want to stretch what they believe they're capable of, and I want them to stretch what I'm believing I'm capable of, and that's a huge piece of anything you do, but certainly being willing to step out from the median and the norm and do something differently, and certainly in an industry as stuck in its ways as ours is, and when it comes to compensation and money and selling, there's a lot of sensitivities to those things. So those are some of the big reasons. I've heard a lot of ridiculous ones, but we encountered some of those in our process of going from flat fee, $3,000 to sell your house, to sometimes is well beyond 7.5%, 8% plus fees, other fees and things like that. There's a lot of room to grow in between there, and we've hit the roadblocks and stumbled and questioned our strategies and improved and tweaked and learned how to have a lot of fun with it.
That's great. And Todd, you've shared a ton of information already, and I'm fired up. I can tell that you're absolutely passionate about doing this and just continually looking for ways to improve these systems. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a break, let everyone kind of absorb everything that you've talked about already. When we come back, let's talk about how we're going to implement this, some strategies behind doing this, and just some questions that people may have along the way in order to make sure that they're implementing this as well as possible.
Sounds great.
Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks. Great. Thanks.